Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Goud Crowd. I am your host, Goud, and we are back after a one-week break. So if you could please like and share the show, that would be very helpful. And you can also subscribe to my X channel at Goud, 4 Utah, and also to Main Street Media Utah. So, you can follow them on X, YouTube, Rumble. We're at all those locations, and also kmmu.org. So we have had a very exciting day. So today, you'll probably hear about this in the news at some point, but we went and we filed a petition to start a referendum on the 14% tax increase that has been proposed by the Salt Lake County Council. So here is a photo of the festivities. We actually had a Grinch show up with us to make a little, we wanted to bring the Christmas spirit in here. And the Grinch in this case is representative of none other than Amy Winder-Newton, everybody's favorite council member. And then the little horse that she has, that is representing Carlos Moreno, because actually, let me play this. It's actually, I think, kind of entertaining. Amy, just in case, for those of you who have not been following, on Tuesday, the Salt Lake County Council actually approved a 14% increase in our property taxes that are paid to Salt Lake County. It's to raise about, I think it's 30, what's the number? 35, I want to say 35.9 million, something like that. A little more than $30 million. Instead of making cuts, they have an over $2 billion budget. They decided they needed to raise the taxes by an additional $35 million. Anybody could go through their budget and find another $35 million in cuts and avoid the tax increase. But our county council has completely lost touch with voters, except for one of the council members, and that is Carlos Moreno. So I give him credit. He's the only one that voted no. I have to say I was extremely disappointed because, let me step back. We have a majority Republican Salt Lake County Council, and they voted to increase your taxes, raising the question of what the hell is the point of electing Republicans if they're going to turn around and increase your taxes. Amy is now arguing that the tax increase is less than originally proposed, so we should thank her and continue to vote for her. And she also wants you to know that her last name is Winder. Okay, let's listen to Carlos talk about the tax increase, because I think he had some good insights here.
Horses, not show horses, and you said.
Do you remember when I come back, when I came here with the idea to bring more the community to be part of these decisions, and 7 of you say no about that. I don't know. I am not an expert in many things, but I know that many of these guys are experts in some areas. That's why I try to bring that policy to have the community support me making good decisions. And you have been here more than a decade. And always we have a tax increase, and always we don't have anything better. That's why we need more solution. We need a better solution, and we need to be more organized to make those decisions. Okay,
so that was Carlos responding when he had given a little talk saying, "I'm voting against this tax increase. People can't afford it." That is correct, and we need to cut more spending. Amy turned around and asked him, "Well, Carlos, we all came up with spending cut ideas. What are your ideas? Do you want to tell us some of them right now?" And he gave a masterful response to her, because the reality is that they could have cut more. And if they don't have the expertise on that council, on that county council, to figure out where to make the cuts, they should be looking to their voters many of whom are experts in budgeting. I know that the Salt Lake County GOP chair, Mike Carey, offered them suggestions about areas that could be cut. They didn't take those suggestions into account at all. They ignored them. I know that Phil Lyman created a DOGE committee, and they came up with additional cuts. This Salt Lake County Council ignored all of those suggestions, and a lot of the cuts presented by both Phil through his DOGE committee and Mike Carey were cuts that could have been made without actually impacting services to people, to citizens that need them. And I think that's a strategy actually on purpose, and people need to kind of think about how politics works. If you notice what they did, they went and they hit issues or cut programs that impacted people and caused them to step forward and talk about all the pain that they were feeling. So they cut a daycare center or these daycare programs. They cut a senior center. That's strategic. It was done on purpose. The reason they do that is because they want all those people to start talking about how much this impacts them, how we can't cut spending. And then what they do is they come back and say, see, we tried. We've tried really hard to cut spending, but look, everybody is getting upset about it. So we can't cut any more spending. We're just going to have to go ahead and have a tax increase. So we'll cut a little bit of spending and we'll still do a tax, but we'll do a smaller tax increase for you. But the reality is that's a purposeful strategy. The federal government, they do this too. So when Democrats are in power and the Republicans shut the government down, typically what Democrats do, and it's genius, is that they shut down the things that impact regular citizens the most. I remember when Obama was president and the Republican Congress shut the government down, or didn't fund it, whatever you want to call it. And by the way, it was a partial government shutdown. The Obama went and put up barriers around the World War II memorial in DC. It's literally an open air memorial and does not need anyone manning it at all. They did that on purpose to cause pain to people, to force them to call their congressmen and ask them to reopen the government. And if you noticed, when we had that long government shutdown just a month ago, President Trump didn't do that. That's a different strategy. That's a strategy to not cause you pain and instead to put the pressure on the party that is not funding the government. So that's what I think the Salt Lake County Council was doing with the programs that they targeted. It was to cause maximum pain, maximum kind of people getting upset so that they wouldn't have to make the types of cuts that are necessary to bring the budget back into balance without any sort of tax increase. We got a couple comments here. Let's see. Utah Mama Papa Grizz says, with our homes being inflated, we already paying more in tax. Did they forget that? Where is that money? That's a good question. Those are great questions. And that's the point. I hear from people all the time, we're at the breaking point. We do not have the funds to pay this higher tax increase. And a lot of the things that are going up in price, we cannot control, right? I can't control how much food prices go up, how much gas prices go up. But I can control how much, hold on one second, whether our property taxes go up. And so that's why we decided to do this referendum. And for those of you wondering, there will be more news on it. We will talk about it soon. Oh, hold on. I got to play one more part of the video, and then we're going to have a special guest come on. So hold on here. Okay, good.
County needs workhorses, not show horses, and you 7 are those. And I appreciate working with you. Thank you.
So in that comment, Amy was calling Carlos a show horse and not a workhorse. That's important. Let's bring on our special guest for tonight. Just in time for Christmas, it is the Grinch. Welcome to the show, Mr. Grinch or Miss Grinch.
Well, howdy. Grinches, there's a lot of them, But I'm Amy Winder Newton. And in Utah, there's a lot of Grinches, especially at Christmas time in Utah. I got an award once. I got an award for being in Whoville, and I'm giving an award to all the Grinches in Utah every Christmas. They raise taxes, and I love it when they raise taxes because the poor little stupid little kids you can't have as many prisons, you know. And so I love this tax because it's a property tax. And that means more property taxes on houses.
Yeah, it's true.
You're going to go up, and libraries. And I love stupid kids. And so they might have to be shutting down libraries because that property tax is going to be so high, they might have to shut it down.
Oh.
Shut down the libraries, shut down the schools.
Oh. Yeah. You're setting yourself some high goals there, Mr. and Miss Grinch. I don't know your pronouns, Grinch.
Hey, you dummy, I'm from Whoville. Don't you know nothing, you numbskull? So I came down special. I'm Amy Winter. I'm the biggest Grinch of all. And I live
Yeah.
some of the time in Whoville, and then I'm on the county council. And I was the leader. I know. I said I was going to cut taxes. I cut the crumbs. Everybody thought I was doing such a good job on cutting taxes. I
Yeah.
cut a few crumbs because there's a lot of other ways you can cut taxes, you know. Like that, they're just, you throw crumbs to the stupid people and they go, oh, look how hard Amy Winter tried to cut taxes, you know. I cut the daycare. I cut the daycare.
Oh man.
Because who cares if the little kitties don't have a daycare? And so I got all of the other Grinches. I mean, how stupid! You dumb people in Whoville and everybody out there in Salt Lake County. You know, Republicans raise taxes just as much
They
as
do.
Democrats.
It's true.
There's been a Republican majority on the county council for years. And Amy Winter Newton, I am so proud to say I have voted for every single. Can you get me? How do I look? Did I cut myself shaving?
No, I will say I feel like your makeup is better than usual, Amy. It's an improvement.
Yeah, because I have voted for every single tax increase. Yeah. And everybody thinks because, oh, I tried so hard to cut a few crumbs up the 20% that the other Grinch, Jenny Wilson, proposed to 20%. Everybody knows there's a lot that you can cut, but you cut the crumbs and you don't really get to the root of the problem, you know?
Yeah. You know, you showed up at the county council building today when we were submitting our petition for a referendum, and you tried to stop us, right, right, Amy? And you were unsuccessful.
Well, you know, these days it don't really matter if you're a girl or a boy. You just call them, you know, Mr., Mrs., whatever. You can be whoever and whatever you want now.
Right.
Yeah. I'm doing my evil.
Oh my God.
Increases. Everybody's doing it in the state of Utah. Every city. So I went today because I'm taking everything. Do you hear me? Everything. I voted. I convinced only 3 of my fellow Republicans to vote for a tax increase. Now, how stupid are they? Because everybody thinks Republicans don't vote for taxes. But we do. But
we don't. No. I would never do that. I would never do that, Grinch. Or Amy, I would never do that. You do that. And so do Lori and Dee and Sheldon. How did you convince Sheldon to vote for a tax increase?
I'm sorry, I was talking over you. What did you just ask me?
I said, how did you convince Sheldon to support a tax increase?
Oh, I told him I'd given him an award. We Grinches, we love awards. I said, you get an award. He's going to get some kind of a kickback. I'm not quite sure what. But there's one of the Republicans I'm really, really mad about. He just wouldn't do what I wanted.
Yeah, I heard.
And that is why my dog Max, who's my trusty dog that helps me steal presents.
Oh.
At Christmas time, I load him up. But he was sick today. So I got a Bronco horse. And I called him Carlos Moreno.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to tame him to be my show pony. He did not conform. He was the only one. 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans voted for a tax increase to take away money from your parents, little children. So now you don't get as much presents. That makes me so happy.
Oh, God, you're kind of evil.
Yes, because we know what to do with your money better than you do, you dumb little Whoville people, you dumb little Salt Lake County people. Don't you know nothing? Don't you know nothing? We got better uses for your taxes. We fund whatever we want, especially other little aliens that come to the country. We give them down payments for houses and all kinds of stuff. I mean,
Oh, my God. So you're taking my money to fund illegal aliens and buy them houses?
Because we know what to do with your money better than you do, you dumb spender. We got lots of programs and lots of salaries to pay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, the mayor have a big salaries in her office.
Yeah. Well, why didn't you cut some of the deputy mayors? Jenny Wilson has multiple deputy mayors and they're making more than $200,000 a piece. Why didn't you cut one of them?
Because that makes too much sense. And they do what I want. Don't you know how government works? You hire the people that do what you want. You know nothing. That's why you can't get elected. I know all about you. You can't get elected because you don't take the money, honey. You have to be bought off to get elected. I'm not stupid. I know how it works. Money is mother's milk of politics. And that's why I just love being the Grinch, because especially for politicians, they can be bought and sold so easily. And the money they take from the dumb little citizens of Whoville and everywhere else is less money for the parents. I hate happy little children. and I have to tell you, and there's a movie about me called The Grinch.
Oh,
Grinch,
yes.
he goes and steals the presents, and he has a change of heart, and he gives the presents back. But guess what? That's a lie.
Oh.
Because when the government taxes you, they never get it back. They never get it back. It's a tax for time and all eternity.
Oh, man.
Celestial tax.
So we're not even going to have a happy ending here.
Like, I'm so happy.
Oh, my God. Well.
And I'm just so mad at Carlos Moreno. Why wouldn't he just conform? I know I do believe he's an asylee from Venezuela.
Yeah.
And he goes around saying all this nonsense, like he's worried that the United States is going to become like Venezuela. I wish he would shut his big fat mouth about that.
Oh my God.
People find out about this, I'm never going to get a tax increase. All these people coming in as refugees. They make me sick when they tell the truth about their countries that don't have freedom and economic freedom and then they have to go and, like Carlos is the worst. He's the worst at this. Comes to America and gets elected student body president and talks about how much he loves America and how he wants to keep us our own money and how taxing us hurts us. He does not conform. Do you know what happens when you don't conform, when you're a politician?
No, what happens?
They get rid of you. They got lots of ways to get rid of you. Just, like lying about you, making sure you don't get any money from the big donors.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
So I'm telling you, you need to start getting bought up, Mr. Goud.
Oh, I wish I had low integrity like you do, Amy. I'm sorry, I don't. I've heard the rumors, though, that you'll do anything for a donor. Anything.
Well, I got to be popular. The way to be popular is to do what the people in power want to do. Don't you know nothing about politics yet? You better learn. You get elected if you do what they tell you. So start conforming now. Carlos, conform. So if enough people find out that they have a little power with this dadgum referendum you got going,
Yeah,
they
we're gonna do it.
They might think they have power. That is a dangerous thing,
Or it's a beautiful thing.
No, it
That's what we
isn't.
need.
No, it isn't. Why do you think we always keep you divided? If we keep
That's
you
true.
divided and fighting along issues, we keep the power.
Oh, man, you are devious. And you are sure willing to share a lot about your strategy. I would think you'd be a little more secretive about it.
I mean, who do you think comes up to visit me in Whoville? Do you think it's the good little boys and girls? No, it's not. It's people who want power. And they want to take things from you.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
So, I'm just so honored that you would have me as a guest on your show.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. Do you have any last thoughts that you
Well,
want to leave people with?
Yeah, I wanted to say, there were some high school girls that, like, who do they think they are? They're asking questions. But we know what to do when people ask questions.
What do? You answer them?
What do you do to them? That's a good idea. What did you say?
Answer the questions?
Oh, we lie. We lie. And we're going to get their money and we're going to get all your money because money makes us happy. And if we can't make enough money, we steal it from the taxpayers. There's ways to cut funds. I know that there's a committee that's looking at ways to cut funds.
Yeah.
But
Or cut spending.
But they're not bought and paid for. So we'll see if they get listened to. So I'm just so honored. I'm sitting here in all my glory and all my riches.
Yeah. You did target that employee. Just on the last note here, there was an employee of a daycare who came forward and spoke out about you cutting their funding. And instead of just, letting her speak, you actually contacted her supervisor and asked her supervisor to punish her for speaking up.
Yeah. We want people to be afraid to ask questions.
Oh, that's what this is about?
Yes. Don't think you have any power.
No, I don't. You know, you also got the Utah Log Cabin Republicans shut down. While I have you here, why did you do that? You know, like we were like the fastest growing conservative gay group in the country. Tons of people were joining. People were so happy, and then you got it shut down. Why'd you do that?
I'll tell you why, Goud. Because you don't follow the narrative. Don't you know nothing, you ignoramus? You don't follow the narrative.
What's the
You
narrative?
don't know this stuff. You've run for office and you ain't never found that out.
I don't know what's the narrative.
The narrative is it's okay to have woke agenda in the schools and to teach to let the little drag queens at schools and teach your children, and you wear really disgusting clothing and you say that you're a woman but you're a man. It don't matter how much makeup you put on. We know, kids know, but they're confused. Things like that. I'm telling you, you do not follow the agenda. Goud.
It's true. I do have that problem. I'm not good at following agendas. Okay, well, it has been great having you on the show, Amy. Any last thoughts? Anything you want to leave people with?
Well, if you go out and sign the referendum, you're going to have some power. And that's our tool. That's our tool against the people with power. And every year, if you sign that and send a message, no more passing taxes at Christmas time, that will make me so mad, because then the parents will have more money to spend on toys. And I hate toys and I hate happy children. And yeah, guess what? Money does buy happiness. It ain't everything, but it sure helps. Because what are you going to do when the little kids want Christmas and you don't have enough money? Because everything you make, the government takes. And the more you make, the more they take. It's that the graduated income tax is the greatest. Yeah. The greatest scandal to take your money. And there ain't no reason to work harder, because the more money you take, the more they'll take. So you just go out and don't work, because if you don't work, you get so much money. You get all kinds of benefits. So we like it when you don't have money, you don't have freedom to travel and to do the things that you like.
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody talking bad about me?
No one's talking about you. Wait, okay. Well, I have to move on to the next segment. It has been a pleasure, Amy. It's always a pleasure. And I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas. So please come back.
Just do what you're told, Goud, or you're going to be my next little show pony.
Oh, no. Okay. Thanks for coming on.
You're not welcome.
Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Okay, here, let me just play you a little bit. Okay, here's what I've got for you. Hold on. I have another video for you guys to see. This is, I think it's going to come. Hold on, I got to do this again. Here. So this is the Grinch at the clerk's office. So maybe a little entertaining for you.
Hey, are you trying to repeal the tax increase? That's why I'm here. I like it. Get out of there. I'm here because every year in Utah, there's a lot of Grinches. and the county commissions are the worst. And there's 800 Grinches. And they're not here with me today. But I brought my dog Max is sick. So I brought my Bronco horse, Carlos, Moreno. Yeah, he's the only one that didn't vote for the tax increase, so I'm going to tame him in to my show pony. We don't like Carlos Morenos.
Oh, right there. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so we have, again, there's a process this will go through. It'll need to get approved by the clerk. And so they now, I can't remember if it's 5 days or 20 days to be able to decide if it's meets the requirements and it's referable to the people for a vote. Once they do that, then we'll have to start collecting signatures. We'll have to collect 7.75% of 580,000 voters. Oh, hold on. 1 second. And I will give you that number. I think it's 40 some thousand. And I hope that a lot of you will actually support it, because I do think the reality is that I think people are tapped out, and that we've had way too many tax increases and general price increases. Okay, the number is 44,950 signatures. So we've been tapped out. We've had years and years of high inflation, and one of the biggest causes of inflation is government spending and government taxes. Taxes are actually not counted in the inflation figures that the federal government puts out. And so I think our actual inflation is undercounted by a lot. So you can have these property tax rates that go up, oh, we're going to increase it 40%. And then the government will release a figure saying, the federal government, inflation is 3%. And you're like, how did one of my biggest expenses go up 40%, but my inflation is only 3%? It's because they're not counting the tax in that basket of goods that they use to calculate inflation. And so it should actually be included in the inflation calculator. And then I'll just add, taxes are your biggest expense for most people, whether it's income tax, property tax, sales tax, vehicle taxes, fuel taxes. They tax everything, and they tax it like 2 or 3 times. It's crazy. And I don't know why we all tolerate this kind of taxation, but in terms of the affordability crisis in Utah and kind of all the different factors that go into that. So the cost of food, the cost of eating out, the cost of housing, the cost of fuel, the cost of cars, the cost of insurance. The one thing you can actually control in all of that is whether your property taxes are going up. And so this is an opportunity for voters in Utah, or specifically in Salt Lake County, to now sign up a referendum petition, get this on the ballot, and then you can decide if you want to have a 14% increase in your property taxes to fund exorbitant salaries so that Mayor Jenny Wilson can have multiple deputy mayors, even though the actual population that she serves is only 7,000 people. That's all she serves. Most of this county is cities. And in the next couple of years, it'll be a wall-to-wall cities because they're getting rid of the county, the unincorporated portions of it. So I think this is an opportunity to get them to be fiscally conservative. And I'll just say this: we have a majority Republican county council, so let's hold them accountable. It's time. Anyway, so that's kind of where we're at, and I'll give more updates as we have more updates, like when it gets approved, and then when our 45 days to collect signatures starts, and we'll start getting those petitions out, and we will be moving to try to collect these. It'll send a strong signal, I think, and a strong signal to the elected officials that we don't want any more tax increases. And I'll finally say this: I don't think this is a partisan issue. I'm hearing from people all across the political spectrum about how they are unhappy about the tax increase and they can't afford it. That's the bottom line. And so let's force the county council to go back and to actually have a balanced budget, or even to cut spending so they can give us a tax refund and make life more affordable in Salt Lake County. And with that, I don't think we have Monica here yet. So let me get to the next thing I had on my little list. We gotta find my list though. There we go. Okay, here's one I had. This was a thought I had on this whole Stuart Adams thing. You know, I've heard from a couple of people that the issue with President Adams, maybe a little background first would help. But so President Adams, he actually, his 18-year-old granddaughter raped a 13-year-old. And instead of allowing her to be held accountable for her actions, President Adams both changed the law prospectively, so going forward, and then he wrote a letter to the court supporting a lighter sentence for his granddaughter. Now, we haven't seen this letter because he refuses to release it, and we can't just go and get it off the docket. It's considered private. So, I'm going to assume the reason he won't show it to us is because he's throwing around his Senate president title to be able to get her a lighter sentence than what she should have gotten for what she did. And I also think there's a class issue here. You've got this upper class, privileged granddaughter of President Adams, and the kid that she raped is a working class kid who comes from a single mother. So there's a class difference there too, and I think that plays into this, and that's part of why people are excusing what he did. And I've heard from multiple people that he runs the Senate in a way that if you criticize him, he will kill all your bills. This guy's corrupt to the core. So he kills people's bills. If they even try to change any of his bills or bill language that he wants, he kills their bills. He will hold their bills and not let them go to the Senate floor if he's unhappy with individuals. This guy is totally abusing his office in every way, shape, and form. And so I think that if the elected officials are not going to speak out about this because they're making a calculation that, hey, if I speak out, then the end result is my bills are going to get killed and it'll hurt my reelection prospects, then I think we as delegates, as voters, we actually need to start asking people running for Senate whether they will vote for him to be the president. And if they say yes or they will not answer, I think then we just don't vote for them. And that's the only way that we're going to get him out of office, because he doesn't have any integrity, right? And yes, to the question from Caroline, yes, she was 18 at the time that she raped the 13-year-old. The way that they changed the law, she was in high school when she did it. And so they changed the law to treat 18-year-olds in high school as if they're still minors. And this is kind of this, Utah generally has this issue where they infantilize people who are their children. I've seen this a lot. Kira Birkeland does it too. So she'll be like, oh, my daughter. Just the example, her daughter showed up to the Utah State Republican Convention, I think wearing booty shorts and like a tank top or something. Inappropriate for a state convention, right? Like completely inappropriate. A female volunteer allegedly told her, you shouldn't wear that here. You look bad. And Kira said it, then went public with this and made it sound like her daughter was a minor. But her daughter was not a minor. Her daughter was actually 19 at the time. So, but this is another example of that. She appeared in juvenile court. To Caroline's question, I don't think she was in juvenile court because I was able to pull the docket in the case. I think it's regular court. I would have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure that's right. Like I said, she was an adult when it happened. This is not a juvenile case. Anyway, point being, we got to get him out of office. And there's a lot of people that are afraid to speak out about him. I am not one of them. To the Grinch's point, I haven't learned that I should shut my mouth and just go along to get along so that I can get elected to office. I don't really care. But we got to get this guy out of office. He is corrupt to the core. He needs to go. Okay. Before I bring Monica on, let me just play a video here because this is related to this, and I realized I had done this video a while ago. Now, when I play it, let me just say this. This is before I had Macon producing my video, so it doesn't have like the music and stuff. Here, this is from the weekly rundown. Okay, hold up.
But don't worry. Governor Cox will now solve the problem that he caused, which seems to be a theme of his. But don't worry,
Yeah.
Governor Cox. But don't worry, Governor Cox will now solve the problem that he caused, which seems to be a theme of his administration. Do you remember when Governor Cox signed the DEI compact and then implemented DEI programs throughout Utah's government? He now wants credit for allegedly eliminating the DEI programs that he implemented in our taxpayer-funded universities. Wouldn't it just be easier to elect a governor who gets things right the first time? But don't worry.
Okay. I'm sorry I stopped this from playing, but anyway, so we're going to talk about DEI today with Monica. Okay, hey, Monica, how are you? We can't hear you. Are you muted?
I'm mute.
There
I'm
you go.
doing great. How are you doing?
I am good. I'm good. So that woman that was in the video, she actually plays a role in this one of the articles that you sent me. I did find it interesting that her pronouns were she, her, they, them. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, saw that.
Okay, so I think I want to start just by maybe talk about DEI, and do we still have it in our universities in Utah?
Oh, absolutely. Not just at the universities, but it's embedded all throughout K-12 education. So it's still there. It's just been rebranded. The article that I had mentioned to you before that you referred to earlier was written by the New Yorker magazine, and they took an inordinate interest in Utah, in specifically HB 261, which was supposedly the anti-DEI law that was passed in 2024. Katie Hall and Keith Grover were the co-sponsors for it. And I think the thing that really bothers me the most, you know, a lot of these bills go through with a ton of holes. They just do. Lots of little loopholes, ways for people to kind of work around really what should be the prohibitions of the law. But what really bugs me is when we hear politicians who say, oh, we totally got rid of DEI, guys. It's gone. We passed a bill like we spoke it into non-existence.
Yeah.
And we all know that's really not the case. If you pay attention closely to what the legislature does and how they do it, you know that a lot of what they're doing is really like political theater many times. You know, it looks good. And I'm not saying it didn't do anything. Yes, it did do some things. But by and large, it just made them reshuffle the DEI deck.
Yeah, okay. So in that, maybe I feel like a lot of times what happens is if you're a regular person, you hear DEI and then you hear it's been eliminated by the legislature, you're thinking, okay, it's gone. But you don't, but the reason you think that is because you don't know what to look for or what would be a sign that there still is DEI in your child's classroom, in your school district, wherever this is. So can you maybe give some examples of what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. For instance, the bill prohibited universities and public schools from calling programs diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Yeah. And so you could literally break up that phrase right there, and you could still have things that focus on diversity, still have events that focus on equity, or programs that focus on equity, and programs that focus on inclusion. You just can't call it that. But some of the other euphemisms that they've rebranded DEI under are things like belonging, sustainability, access, community, success. Success is a big one. They use that for everything. Here we have a student success center, and it's like, okay, that's supposed to be available to everyone. But who do you think staffs these student success centers up at the universities? They've just moved over all the old personnel from their LGBTQ center, from their women's center, from the Black centers. They just moved them all over. The same personnel.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, the belonging, that jumped out at me in the articles you had sent. It was like, they kept talking about this idea of belonging. You know, I went to college and I went to law school. I don't remember this ever being an issue. I don't really even understand what it means. Like, how would a university show me that I belong? Maybe talk about that. But what does that mean?
It's an interesting concept. And a lot of it entails like a shift of loyalties So they want you to feel like you belong to the institution. Well, and usually that comes at the expense of belonging to some other type of organization or affiliation, or even in terms of family, right? That loyalty there should be everybody's, I think, like first loyalty. Your family should be like your first loyalty. But increasingly, educational institutions are trying to reframe themselves as a student's family. I know, like in my daughter's junior high, they would come over the intercom twice a day, and they would say, "Your Matheson Junior High family loves you." And so they would try to kind of like, I guess, condition students to feel like they belong to the school. And so another aspect of belonging that I think is kind of maybe underplayed a little bit, but it's this idea that, everyone is welcome. Yes, everyone is welcome to an extent, right? You know how it goes. It's like if you have the right attitudes, you are probably more welcome than others in that space.
Okay. I'm wondering, maybe when you went to college, right? You're at least, I don't know if you're 100% or you're like 50%. Is it Costa Rican?
Yeah, my mom's from Costa Rica.
Okay. So when you went to college and stuff, did you ever, like, were there these groups at that point in time? And I'll just say from my personal experience, when I went to college, there was an Indian Students Association. And I remember I used to go to events and stuff. It was kind of interesting because, like, it's a weird, I feel like college can be kind of weird. Like, you're kind of getting in touch with something that maybe you didn't have before. It certainly didn't, like, it wasn't, I don't even know if it was officially school sanctioned. I don't remember like a diversity center. It was just a group. They'd have like events. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, like the change from kind of that type of a concept, like a group where people could meet and maybe talk about some commonalities of the culture that they grew up with, versus what's happening now.
Okay, so what's happening now, and again, they've kind of shifted it. They've made it harder to spot, and a lot of these groups are now meeting, let's say, without the university's direct funding, but that doesn't mean they don't receive funding from other sources. A lot of their public-private partnerships, that's where they're getting their funding, and that's where they continue to operate, right, in those spaces. So I'll talk about that in a second as it relates to DEI training with the K-12 schools. But like when I went to college, like there really wasn't anything like that. They had events and it was for everybody. And it was, in the 90s. I'm not going to like give you a date. It was in the 90s. No.
It's 90s for me too. And by the way, everybody was invited to those events. It was never anything like, oh, you're white, you can't come to our event. It was very like, everybody come, let's have fun. 100%.
Oh yeah, 100%. And one thing though, and I think I had a kind of unique college experience, because when I was up at Utah State, there was this class that I took at the time, and it was called Gender Roles in American Society. And it was, and I don't know why I signed up for it. I needed a credit, right? And to me, it was kind of interesting. It talked a lot about the objectification of women, traditional gender roles being somewhat along a spectrum, but there was never any question of questioning the sexual binary. There were women, there were men, and there was no third species, right, in between. It was just, that was just how it went.
Was
that?
It was the 90s when things were normal in the 90s.
Things were relatively normal in the 90s. It just wasn't even a question, to be honest. And at least in, northern Utah. But as that class went on, they brought in, at that time, I think they called them, I can't remember, it's like the Gay Lesbian Association of Logan or something, but it didn't spell glal or whatever that spells. So it spelled something. And I remember they came in and they had some representatives and they formed a panel and we were all circled around them. It was like, it felt weird, Goud. It just kind of felt weird. Like we're all just staring at them like, why are you gay or what? I don't know. It felt weird. And they're like, why are you not gay? And it felt like a very hostile kind of situation. We'd ask questions and And they kind of laugh and snicker among themselves and act like the whole thing was in a way a little bit of a joke. But I ended up being a facilitator for future courses where I had to facilitate it was like the gay and lesbian panel day, where here we have a gay guy, here we have a lesbian woman, and you're supposed to ask them questions. It's kind of a weird experience in many ways. But whether it was to create empathy, and gender conversations, all those kinds of things, I think the point was kind of lost on most of the kids in there. They just were like, why are we treating you like some kind of scientific specimen? It felt weird. It felt weird.
A zoo animal or something.
A zoo animal. A zoo animal.
That's what it sounds like. You guys sit in the middle.
Right? It was.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting. I will say, like, for the gay community, there's always been kind of this issue of those stereotypes about gender roles, right? But it's more about you can be a man and like doing ballet or things like that, which
Sure.
I think also apply to straight people. Like it's actually more of just like it's kind of this idea boys should be able to do what he wants, girls should be able to do what they want and have fun with it. To some limits. I mean, like, I'm not really one to be like boys should wear dresses. I just feel like, that's unnecessary. Although if they're little, it's different. But as you get older, like, you should actually begin to fit some norms.
Sure. We all have societal and cultural norms. That was, part of the discussion. There's not anything abnormal about a norm, by its definition, right? It's just how your society has kind of agreed on operating. And yeah, there, you can like things as a girl that boys have traditionally liked, if you grew up with an older brother, like I did, you did all the boy stuff. It was just kind of what you did. And so, none of that really came into question, right? Tomboys could be tomboys until the genderism entered into the discussion and entered into the political conversation. And that is when, in my opinion, things really, really went off the rails.
Yeah, I think you're right. We do have a couple comments here. Let me just read these because maybe you'll have a response. But Caroline says NEA has rebranded it Educational Justice.
Yes. Yes, that's a great observation. Yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so as we all know, like, DEI is a form of social justice, right? And so, the idea that we can achieve these equal outcomes, and by equal outcomes, they mean closing the gap. So if that means if the kids are up here because they have some perceived like societal advantage or advantage of their gender, of their or of their sex, of their color, whatever it may be, their socioeconomic status, the idea is not necessarily to bring people up here. It's kind of like to lower the gap this way, right? To close the gap in this regard. Because none of this is really based on merit. So this idea of educational justice is exactly that. We're going to use the educational system to implement our version of social justice. And, they'll do that through a variety of ways. They've already done it through the dumbing down of the grading system, proficiency-based grading, instead of this, cutoff of what, 59% for an F. Now it's like 25% and less, and it's still not even. So the grading system's kind of moved to a 1 to 4 basis, and so a 1 is anywhere from like 0 to 25%. A 2 is anywhere from 26% to 49%. A 3, 50% to about 75%. And the crazy thing, and they've been doing this for a while. This has been going on for at least, probably like 10, 11 years, somewhere around there. It's been maybe a little bit longer. I remember when the system came into being, and half the teachers didn't know how to really explain it. I had one teacher who could explain it very well, and it's basically, the kids can, in a proficiency-based grading system, the kids have unlimited attempts to basically try to score a 3 or better. And by better, they say, well, your kid can go after a 4, but a 4 is impossible. Don't even try for a 4 almost. That's literally what my kids were told. So what they're really saying is that a 4, a 75% and up, like, that's impossible? Really? That's kind of nuts. That's kind of like, it's super dumbed down again. And not only that, but the accountability grading for our schools is also along that similarly dumbed down, and it's even worse. So like in order to decide if a school is successful, it's like something like for elementary schools, I think it's like a 0 or 100% down to a 69% is considered exemplary. A 5, the highest you could possibly get. Isn't that
Wow.
nuts? It's totally nuts. And so we've got this really bastardized version of merit going on in the schools. It's not real. It doesn't measure any sort of like objective academic output. It really is geared towards measuring kids as to whether they have, the attitudes that are aligned to DEI, and conditioning them towards developing those attitudes through social emotional learning. So those two theories of learning and being, of identity, they are tightly intertwined. It's a very super destructive, like 1-2 punch to these kids' objective academic learning.
Okay, so is that going on in Utah schools? It sounds like it is.
All over the place. The State Board of Education has created what it calls its North Star for education here in Utah, and it's the portrait of a graduate, and it is the state's vision of what every student should look like, think like, behave like, not just by the time they graduate, but from grade K on. And they have values that they want the kids to adopt. And of course, how they want them to adopt those values, it's not like the way you and I look at honesty. Let me give you an example. There was a parent who was telling me that her daughter was involved in this program down in Alpine School District. It was called the GRIT program. The I stood for integrity. Well, she got a note from, like you and me, when we think about integrity, we think about, okay, this is a person who's like honest, who sticks to their principles, right? Like, I mean, I think that's the traditional definition of it. Well, this parent got a note saying, your daughter is failing integrity. And she's like, failing integrity? Like, what did she do? Kill someone? Did she like beat up somebody for their lunch money? Like, what's going on here? Well, the reason she was failing integrity was because she had too many unexcused absences. And they classified absences underneath the integrity category.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question about this grading system, maybe some of these new learning systems. Like, for example, I helped one of my nephews with his math, and they do like Common Core math. So it's a little bit different than how I learned it. And I have wondered if that's all done on purpose to make it so that parents who grew up with a different system cannot understand what's happening and can't be as helpful and involved with their students' education. I guess, is that part of the goal here?
Absolutely, it's part of the goal. A lot of times, like Natalie Klein will call it like the parent alienation program. Basically, the idea is to, again, like kind of shift allegiances, shift loyalties, and to shift trust. And so, well, my parents are kind of stupid. They can't help me with my math. That's the message that's getting down to these kids, right? Oh, yeah. My parents don't know what they're talking about. I mean, you probably remember that video of the Lehigh teacher. I think Leah McKinnon was her name, that a student had videoed, and she was literally telling the kids, your parents are stupid. You know more than they do. She was just berating them for a whole bunch of different issues, and spouting her very far left ideas, philosophies, ideologies. So that's kind of that's just one of the many negative byproducts of something like Common Core. But where people don't understand kind of where it's going now is a lot of the learning is assessed towards like for NEA, like it's the National Education Association, and for NEA competencies, meaning these are the skills we want students to develop, and kids are actually being assessed as to whether they can communicate, collaborate, creative thinking, or do critical thinking. And so those are the 4 C's, and those have been, the NEA came out with those, I think, back in like 1999, somewhere around that time. So it's not as much as can you compute? Can you do multiplication? As can you communicate about doing math? Can you work in a group towards math? In fact, at the CASTLE conference, and CASTLE is the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning. They set the standards for social emotional learning nationally, internationally. We follow many of our, I would say almost all of our SEL programs in Utah are aligned to CASTLE. There was a national math teacher from a national math organization. His name is Kevin Dykma. And he was talking about what's really important. He's like, it's not as important as whether, you know, the kids can really kind of do the math as much as it is as they should be asking themselves, what is my math identity?
Oh my God.
What is my math identity?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, you're looking a little like mind blown. It's bad. Oh, I think you're frozen, Goud.
I think we lost Goud. Can you hear me, Monica?
Yeah. I think we did lose Goud. So
Yeah, let me kick him out and we'll get him back in.
okay.
Sometimes there's a little bit of a bandwidth problem. Let's try this. See if I can get him to come back in.
Okay.
He locked up. He seized up.
I thought I had just, you know, wowed him with a bunch of awful facts, but
Yeah, you blew his mind.
it's just a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah, well, technology, you know.
Right. Love it.
See if we can get him back. Maybe he lost his Wi-Fi completely. Who knows? I'm texting him. So.
Well, I could tell jokes in the meantime. None of them would be any good.
Yeah, me too. Oh, there he is. There he is. There he is.
Oh, there, I'm back.
You're back.
Sorry, that was where my power went out. I was like, "Why it got dark in here? What just happened?" Okay, I guess let's see. Where did we leave off? When I cut off? What did you just say?
I was talking about the math identities. The math identities. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll do a couple comments here. I just saw some comments. Sure. So we've got Caroline says, I'm a teacher, and I think this is Granite School District. We use PBG. I'm not sure what that is.
Proficiency-based grading. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, that's what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the kids get multiple attempts to try to basically raise their grade. When you have a lot of learning that's moved to the tech, which it has, a lot of times that's just like kind of pecking on the keyboard, you know, to get the right answer. I know I saw it with my kids all the time. You know, you keep trying until, okay, I get the right answer. Doesn't mean you understand that why you got the right answer. It all depends on how the teachers kind of have things structured either in Canvas or how these EdTech programs are organized. So proficiency-based learning and proficiency-based grading are very tightly interrelated.
Okay. Then she says, USBE has a document describing their position on the pronoun they. Is that?
I don't know if there's a new one, but there was one back in 2022. And in 2022, they had a gender identity guidance document that really didn't get anywhere official. There was a lot of pushback against it. It was a mess. So they said on the pronoun they that, oh, that's something that is in common usage now. You know, you could use it safely. But I do know that in Granite School District, as well as in other districts, they've been training teachers to use gender inclusive language. And so to not call the students boys and girls, but to call them folks or hey, not even guys, like, hey, students, something that's gender neutral. It's like putting them in those little Maoist smocks, that the that the
Yeah.
Chinese would wear, so you really can't tell the difference between the boys and the girls, at least as far as language is goes.
Okay. It's also kind of it just seems making people way too sensitive, right? Like when you say, "Hey guys," you're not being like, "Hey men only." It's everybody. Like, "Hey guys, what's up?"
Right. To me, guys would be a very common parlance as well, but apparently guys is offensive, whereas, folks isn't. So, again, it's whatever they tell you is offensive, and whoever they is usually the people who are aligned to these, like, I think, far left ideologies. They're the ones who are running the institutions.
Yeah. Okay, so then Disagree Butter says it's not part of the goal, it's the whole goal. Talking about like dividing the parents and the children by making the way they learn new, the grading system new, everything new.
It is. And what they call that is they call that second order change. I think I might have mentioned this on your show before, but there are 3 levels of basically social change. The first level is first order change, and that's procedures. That's intended to be, that can be reversed. You can make a process and then backtrack it and say, let's do it a different way. But second order change is policy, and they do intend policy change to be irreversible. And so, meaning that once we've gone down this road, where we have Common Core now, and it's our policy to basically teach Common Core in the schools, we have no intent of going back. There's no intent of going back to basic math, basic English. It's all got to be aligned to the communicate, collaborate, creative thinking, and critical thinking model. And then the third order change is like societal or cultural change, and that's also intended to be irreversible.
Okay. And then the final comment is Caroline saying, I teach math, the word identity is not uttered. So that was, I think, in response to you talking about the idea of your identity in math.
Well, this is Castle's vision, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. Like, this is their vision, is that, identity is going to be basically like inseparable from everything in learning is going to be centered on identity and purpose. And, it's these like existential questions that really have no place in school. Like, when I go to school, I don't want to navel gaze, I just teach me the math, teach me the English, give me the basics that everybody else can get. And then I get to go home and do my own thing, but that's not it anymore. Like, there's a lot of emphasis. In fact, Granite School District is right now considering a proposition to extend the school year 30 school days into the summer. There's another example of like parental alienation, right? Those poor kids. And they're going to pilot it. The proposition is to pilot it in the Title I schools. Oh, these poor kids who go to these schools, they need more school because their families suck, is essentially the message they're trying to send. And the schools are great, but their families suck. And when they go home to their families during the summer, guess what? They're going to spend all their time on video games. They won't be taken care of. No one will feed them. And that's, you know what? That's horrible. That's like a horrible mindset to get into. Just because you're poor doesn't mean your parents don't love you.
Right. 100%. Okay. So Caroline says, not in my classroom. We appreciate that here.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, not all teachers, right? And we know it's not all teachers. We have, I think, a few that are like trying to hang on. And they're trying to do the right thing by students. But, I talked to a teacher who was she was hanging by a thread. She's like, I'm doing everything I can in my classroom to not like fall into this trap of like seeing these kids through these, intersectional lenses. But she says, it really breaks my heart when I see somebody come in the room, with purple hair, clear ideological leanings, saying, give me your child, I'm going to go take them and, go off and do a counseling session or with them or whatever. And she's like, how do you fight against a system that doesn't fight against that?
Yeah, it's very difficult to fight this stuff anyway, because I think it actually gets ingrained in our own minds, right? It's so pernicious and it's everywhere that I see friends, family who talk about racial issues that never would have talked about that 20 years ago. It's
Mhm.
just a whole societal move to make us all feel like, we're victims. Being a minority is like the main thing that matters, or whatever it is. And instead of, we're all Americans, it doesn't matter, which used to be what it was. And, you work hard, you can make it.
Yes, you work hard, you can make it. Everybody is free to rise to their own level, whatever that level may be.
Yeah.
One thing I mentioned prior was, it's very interesting, like HB 261, it says, hey, we prohibit, like, talking about these like prohibited practices, right? These DEI practices in required trainings. That's the operative word. I think when people look at things, they need to understand that so much in education right now isn't necessarily required. It's voluntary. In fact, the Utah Pride Center has formed this nonprofit group called Include Ed. And it is a totally, DEI minded, but especially geared to the sexual politics, right? The
Yeah.
LGBTQ stuff. And Include Ed is hosting this huge teacher training. It's coming up here in January. They've become very exclusive. Me and a few friends, Natalie Klein was there, and we went to what used to be, I guess, what was the original Include Ed conference that was hosted by the Utah Pride Center, is called Pride Not Prejudice. And we
Okay.
went to that, and they freaked out when they saw a whole bunch of conservatives walk through that door. They put your phones away. We'll kick you out if you use your phones, and everything like that. But after that, they've gotten more exclusive, more selective. They're holding things in private locations where they can kick out people, so it's not. That was held at a Valley junior high school, and but they have, it's like a who's who of sexual radicals within the state. John Arthur is on their board. John Arthur, who just got elected to the
Teacher of the year.
legislature. Teacher of the year, right?
Yeah.
And he was one of the keynote speakers for Pride Not Prejudice. But what's interesting about the Include Ed United conference teacher training is that it's not required. It's totally voluntary. However, the Utah State Board of Education gives Midas points and teacher credit for your participation in it. So they incentivize. They don't need to require it. They just need to incentivize, teachers' participation in these DEI conferences, and they'll go to them.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk a little specifics maybe about the articles, because I thought this was interesting. Here's in this one, I thought it was kind of fascinating. There we go. The woman talks about is this what you're talking about, by the way, this Young Americans for Freedom 2023 meeting?
That meeting was actually Natalie and I were the speakers at that meeting.
Okay. I read it and I was like, this must be them.
That was us. The Young Americans for Freedom hadn't hosted a speaker since Ben Shapiro, and that was back in 2021 or something like that. Okay. And then they got a lot of heat for it, like, how dare you have somebody conservative on campus, right?
Yeah.
And then they reformed, and as they reformed, we were asked by Young Americans for Freedom. We were recommended by one of their members. They're like, you have to have Monica and Natalie come and talk to you about what's going on in K-12 education. So they asked us to come speak, and the where it says Stockton recalled a 2023 event. This is referring to Catherine Bond Stockton, who was the dean at one time of the University of Utah's School of Cultural and Social Transformation. It's 100% DEI. It's gender identity. It's Black identity politics. It's feminism. You name it. It's all wrapped up into one. And this was a legitimate school at the University of Utah. I think it formed in 2015. And so and nuts. If you've ever listened to Catherine Bond Stockton speak, you're just in for a surreal experience because she's just like, she talks about child sexuality. A lot of her writings talk about child sexuality. Like, it's creeps. It's super creepy. And she talks about, their playful sexuality. It's very, very perverted in my mind, and talking about children not growing up, but sideways.
Yeah.
So it's like super creepy. But here she comes. She came to our event, and here she's trying. It's funny, like, because the New Yorker's trying to kind of like position this as, oh, look how how welcoming and listening, how open she is to listening to other people's ideas. Like, I think she says right there that she spoke to a group of women who had seemed excited about the talk so she could better understand their perspective. And yet she's out there protesting us. She was out there with a big group of protesters. When the meeting began, Mecha was there, and they're like the radical, Hispanic separatist group, right? And they sat there and they chanted for like 10 minutes almost, like, fascists go home, fascists go home. This wasn't about listening. This was about, like, it's kind of like a fact-finding mission, intel gathering mission. They wanted to see what we were saying and then how they could counter it.
Okay, interesting. I also thought it was interesting here because she talks about communicating with people that disagree with you, but then ends by saying, I never recommend this as a general principle. Stockton was a both and willing to engage with people who didn't agree with her worldview, but also keen to protect students whom she saw as vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's what I was like, so you're not even encouraging students to have open discussions with others and debate your ideas.
No, there's no such thing as that, right? I mean, it's a double standard. And I think it's super deceptive and duplicitous. But yeah, that's kind of how it goes. It's always, we're willing to listen to you as long as you agree with us.
Yeah. The other thing I thought was really interesting in the article was, and I did not realize this, but that LDS candidates for faculty are actually discriminated against.
Yeah.
I have to say, I am shocked by that. We are in Utah. The majority of the people are LDS, and the notion that our state-funded school would be doing that just shocked me. I guess, do you have thoughts on this?
Oh, it doesn't surprise me at all. What's interesting is, like, and I think this was in the guidance. Let me see if I have it right here. They issued some guidance, like how to interview, like, employees, right? And this is after HB 261. So it kind of tells you, that they haven't stopped this practice. They said, like, instead of saying this, say that.
Yeah.
So one of the things they said was, a current example for an applicant who is, being interviewed, don't write does not value diversity. What you should write is does not value people of all backgrounds.
Okay. Sounds like the same thing.
The same thing. It's the same thing. In fact, I think the article compared it to a game of Taboo. Like, you have to say the word without saying the word, or have people guess what the word is without saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, I had some training this weekend, and actually this came up as an issue. The teacher said, I know we're not supposed to talk about DEI, but like, we like diversity of viewpoints. But I actually spoke up and I was like, well, that's not DEI. Like, the point of DEI is it's about race and as a stand-in for the diversity. Like, I don't think anyone has an issue with diversity of viewpoints. That's like the whole point, right? Like, we want to hear everyone's views, and they may be different because you come from a different type of experience. That's all.
Right. And I think you get to that point here in the article. I don't know if maybe that's a little bit before, but you have like a college professor or a college president. Her name was Allen, and she like gathered a bunch of colleagues together to publish a report suggesting that viewpoint diversity and free expression are crucial components of inclusion and belonging on university campuses. This is kind of weird to me. So if you go up to, it's like on the 4th page, I think, of the article. Because what they're really doing here is they're equating viewpoint diversity and free expression. And our normal words for these are, this is classical liberalism. This is just classical liberalism, right? Your civil liberties, your First Amendment, your 14th Amendment protections, like that's all what that is. But what they want to do is actually define viewpoint diversity and free expression as belonging and diversity. So it's like hijacking those terms and bringing them underneath this DEI language umbrella, where it's like, oh yes, we love those things because they represent belonging and diversity. You see how they're shifting the vocabulary and shifting, like you mentioned, it's really easy when you hear these terms again and again and again, people just start thinking in these ways. It's almost like it's like 1984, the newspeak, right? Don't say bad or terrible or horrible, just say not or ungood, right? This is just ungood. And so they start capturing the way you think by capturing the language. And so this is really kind of a viewpoint monopoly at this point. Oh, yes, belonging and diversity represent viewpoint diversity and free expression, when in reality, they don't. What they've done is they've just kind of like shoehorned what you can say underneath two very interesting words, belonging and diversity. And those words do mean something to certain people, and they have a very distinct goal and purpose.
Okay, that makes so much more sense, because if you look at the last sentence I highlighted here, they say one of the examples of pluralism, it demands that political conservatives who oppose affirmative action have fruitful discussions with people of color. And I read that and I was like, wait, but this is you're still being racist. I am a minority. I oppose affirmative action. I do not think you should be judged based on your skin color. And your new view of this still encompasses a racist worldview. I didn't see a difference. Okay.
Totally. Like fruitful, right? What fruit are they looking for that discussion to bear? And that is really what you have to ask yourself is, and it's very easy, to get caught up into this kumbaya attitude. But, as we know from the Disagree Better campaigns, as we know from the Dignity Index campaigns, the idea is to reframe the discussions entirely. So they want you to start thinking about dialogues and about conversations, public opinions, in terms of you're going to gauge your opinion according to dignity. And a lot of people have been doing that already. They've been saying on our side, they're like,
really?
Well, that's not very, they want us to have dignity if we want true dignity. And so they've made that the high bar, dignity, when it's really liberty. We should be really focusing on liberty, not dignity, because liberty sometimes is not dignified. It's okay. It's all right. Our founding fathers worked through that, right? They totally worked through that.
Right. That's a great point. We have a question. What is this article, please, from Caroline? I can scroll to the top. It's what comes after DEI. This is in the New Yorker magazine, Monica?
Yes, New Yorker magazine, April 14, 2025. Very interesting. Like they kind of say the quiet parts out loud throughout the article. This idea that, we just basically like code switched essentially. And we just started using, alternative vocabularies. And one thing I thought was very interesting was the observation at the beginning from a university or from university presidents. And they said, though conservative critics of higher education claim that universities indoctrinate students to adopt leftist attitudes, several presidents told me that students arrive on campus already formed. They're not tabula rasa, says Rich Lyons, the chancellor of UC Berkeley. And they're not entirely wrong there. Many of these kids are radicalized in the schools. It happens very early, and it continues and it accelerates through junior high and high school. I've witnessed it time and time again, and how these kids are elevated. Their voices are elevated. There's a big emphasis right now. One of the hugest trends is student-led learning. So we elevate these kids who really don't have like kind of like the foundational knowledge to really be making formed opinions, but we flatter them. We say, your voice is so important. You're the future, et cetera, et cetera. And really these kids don't know much, right? They've been indoctrinated. And so they're starting off with really kind of a skewed ideological basis, but it also helps to more easily radicalize them. And when they are more easily radicalized, you know, they're malleable and they can be put to use for political purposes. They get exploited all the time.
Yeah. Okay, I am wondering, how does this translate to the K through 12 space in Utah? So maybe a basic question for everybody is, did HB 261, is that the number?
Mm-hmm.
Did it impact our K through 12 at all?
I mean, we still have the gender and sexuality alliances. Those haven't gone anywhere.
Right.
We still have rainbow clubs, which is the GSA on the elementary level. Those haven't gone anywhere. You know, we still have Latinos in Action, which is a club that is based entirely around social justice, the Chicanx movement, right? That hasn't gone anywhere. We have all these student-led clubs, right, that haven't gone anywhere. We have a lot of, the DEI is embedded in the instruction. It's embedded in the curriculum. It's embedded in the structures, culture, and pedagogies of the schools. It's nothing has changed. In fact, we put in a few complaints to, I think it was Granite School District and Provo School District, about some DEI practices. And, you know, their legal counsel came back with the response that, nope, these practices are totally in line with HB 261. We don't have to change a darn thing. And I think maybe a lot of parents might not be aware that English classes, this is how they get through a lot of the DEI, through the literature selections. And that's huge. You know, everybody says, well, that's academic. Well, yeah, academics have been hijacked towards ideological agendas.
Okay. So it's still there.
It's still there. Like, it's there in Portrait of a Graduate. It's there in their personalized competency. Yeah, I mean, I could list the multi-tiered systems of support, restorative justice. Like, the restorative justice practices are supposed to take into account a child's, like, you have a kid who like punches some other kid in the face for, you know, for whatever reason. You know, if you look at that incident through a restorative justice lens, you're supposed to take into account that kid's unique background. So their socioeconomic status, their ethnic status, their racial status, their sexuality. And then you are supposed to basically mitigate for those factors. Oh, he couldn't help himself because he's poor, or couldn't help himself because he's Indian, you know, or whatever. And it's a ridiculous. It's just bowing to stereotypes, and what you're really doing is making schools unsafe.
Yeah, and you're also like creating this situation where I guess you're not holding all kids to the same standard, and that's the bottom line, right? So you're not, you know, and that means that you're not having the same high standards for everyone that you should have. And
no,
that seems like really damaging to me.
It's super damaging. In fact, someone I know who's in law enforcement was told by another law enforcement officer who was assigned to a school, a local school, that he was told by the principal, like, we do not want arrests of basically, they said that, like, the Mexican kids, the kids who were in gangs, and a lot of them were Mexican. We do not want you to arrest them. We don't want you to bring up any drug charges against them, because that reflects poorly on the school. It reflects poorly on the school, because then it looks like we're feeding this the school to prison pipeline, right? And we are being discriminatory because these kids disproportionately participate in this activity compared to other demographics within the school. And so this law enforcement officer, I know.
I
Just what it is. It's what it is. It's nuts though, right? So it's like, okay, so these kids don't get into trouble. That's your definition of restorative justice in practice. These kids don't get into trouble. Maybe they get a slap on the wrist, or they talk it out, or they hug it out, or do whatever. When I ran for the State Board of Education, I met with a juvenile justice group out in Tooele County.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how, all the time, these kids that were favored by the school for whatever reason would get off scot-free. And then the kids who were being bullied by them had to go back to school with them. They had to sit in the same classes with them because you couldn't discriminate against the kid because that's not equitable. You can't do that. And so it was, and there were kids who were suffering hugely, like psychologically, from that type of trauma, from being forced to, share space with their abusers, basically, and pretend like it was all normal.
Wow, man, we need you on that state school board.
There's no way they'll let anybody like me on that state school board ever.
I know that's what the Grinch said. I saw the Grinch thing, but the Grinch actually told me the reason I'll never be elected to office is because I won't listen. Do what they say. I feel like you may have the same issue.
Yeah, I think I have the same issue. It's funny because when you do, I think that's our problem, is we do listen, and we listen to a lot of people who normally don't get listened to, and then we pass on those concerns, and everybody's suddenly like, shoot the messenger, kill him, down with Goud, and is it fair? No. But I feel for these people in these situations who are stuck in these situations. And if people only knew how deep the problems in public education go, how much isn't being taught because of what is being taught, and what is being taught very often isn't truthful. It's not helpful. It's really dangerous. It alienates the kids from all their traditional structures. And true support systems, and uses the school as kind of the ersat, and positions the school as the ersatz parents. It's not good. It's just not. That's not good. It is anti-family. It's anti-faith. It is anti-freedom. And when you have all that going on, you can't, what do you expect? What do you expect is going to come of a system like this? You're going to send these little radical activists off to college who will only learn further, right? In the dangers of the dark arts, I guess, of these very, very, very far left, anti-social and anti-intellectual movements.
Yeah, just on the teacher part of this, one of the things that, like when I ran for State House, there were some teachers who were delegates, and one of the kind of messages that they told me is that in a lot of ways, they're actually kind of over-regulated. So that there's just so much guidance, and there's just so many changes constantly happening that it's hard to keep up, and you're spending tons of time doing that instead of actually just being able to like teach your classes. I guess maybe talk about your impressions about that.
Well, as a former teacher who taught in the dark ages, when there were no Chromebooks, right, and no computerized learning, I kept my grades out of a paper grade book. So, back in the days, you read books. It was, very, very foreign to what the kids' experiences are now. And you read whole books. You didn't just read an excerpt from the books. Yeah. So, back then it was already enough, but I was also a debate coach. So I was putting in probably easily like 60, 70-hour weeks on a regular basis. And plus I was an English teacher. So that meant every time you assigned writing, you had to grade the writing, and that takes time. And it's harder, like Jordan Peterson says, it's harder to grade bad writing than it is good writing because you feel compelled to give feedback, right? Yeah. You're trying to help people become better writers. So if that's what my life was like back then, with just, not a whole bunch of like micromanagement from the top. Standards were a thing when I was teaching, but they hadn't really kind of settled into the culture of teaching. Like they pointed and they said, there are standards you should be teaching to. but nobody really, most people at that time were still continuing with their set curriculum that they'd been using for a long time. So it wasn't like you were really held to the standards as much as they hold the teachers to the standards now. There's no way. You couldn't pay me enough money to go back into teaching nowadays with all the expectations. You got to be these kids like, mental health thermometer. You got to keep a finger on their pulse, and you've got to be aware of all these these social cues and signals of whether this kid may be in need of interventions or preventions or certain supports. And but you can't do anything if a student really acts out. You got to just sit there and take it. And I don't envy teachers today. I feel for them, especially if they're trying to do the right thing. If you're in there though indoctrinating the kids towards your leftist ideologies, I also feel nothing for you. I feel no empathy for you, and I feel no desire to support you in your quest to continue to hurt these children, because it does hurt children.
Yeah, that's it. See, yeah, and I think that's a good distinction to make, right? I feel like most teachers, they're probably trying to do their best, and it's a struggle, to your point of I'm getting so much guidance. It's I don't know. I honestly don't know how they do their jobs, because when I look at the USBE guidance, it's 100 pages to tell you what pronoun to use, I guess. And then you're like, okay, so now I just spent 2 hours or 3 hours reading this when I could have been prepping to help my students do better at something.
Right. And so much of that too. I mean, they've got all sorts of committees and ad hoc groups to, here, we've got to get the kid on this. And then they have counselors coming in who are giving lessons now, teaching the children. And in my days, the counselors took care of your academics. You had a schedule problem, counselors would step in, maybe do a half-cheek job, sometimes do a good job, but for the most part, they get you the class you needed. Once in a while, send along maybe a scholarship opportunity your way. But now they are told not to be wasting their time doing these kinds of administrative functions, these clerical functions. Basically, you need to be in the classes, you need to be teaching kids, you need to be working them through these multi-systems of supports where we want, maybe one kid is acting out. Okay, you've got one kid who's acting out in the class. Bingo, that's all the reason they need. That's all the justification they need to go in and plan a lesson plan that is administered universally. Because you breathe, you get the interventions, whether you need them or not. It's not fair. It's this big collectivist, approach to public education that makes public education even more socialist, even more controlling than it has been in the past. And there's always been that socialist component to public education.
Yeah. A couple more comments. Caroline says PBIS.
Yeah. Positive behavioral interventions and supports. And so that's where, and it's funny because there was a Granite school district board meeting where even some of the far left members were complaining about PBIS because what that means is here a kid acts out and we're trying to get the kid to act in the right way. But how do we do it? Instead of giving them a stick, we give them a carrot. And so we send them to the principal's office. They come back with a sucker or a candy bar because the principal said, hey, now, we can't be acting this way. You're going to go out there and do better next time, won't you? And the kid's like, oh, of course, yeah, whatever, and then principal gives them a sticker or something to make them feel like, hey, we're on your side. And it's okay. You'll do better next time. So the kid walks away with the candy bar and then lives to slug somebody else another day, right? There are no real consequences with PBIS. I see what they're trying to do in a way. It's not effective. And this is why the Granite board members were complaining about it. They're like, we're getting complaints from teachers who say, here's this kid who's acting out and disrupting their class. They send him to the principal. They come back happy, act like it's, okay, no big deal that I got out of class, basically. That itself for many of these kids is a reward, right? I got out of class. That's
Totally
great.
right. Yeah. Oh, I'll totally act out all the time then. I get a
Yeah.
lollipop. Like,
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? And
Yeah.
you would push that. I mean, kids are smart. At the end of the day, they know how to get around rules and they know how to milk the system to their own advantage. They've always done so. Like you probably did it as a kid. I know I did it as a kid too. Kids figure out how to make the system work for them. PBIS falls right into that trap.
Caroline also says, and this actually reflects what you said, I've been teaching since 1997. The profession is dramatically different. So.
Yes, dramatically different, all the way to the point where, the teacher colleges, I still have, I taught, around your Caroline's era there. That's when I was beginning to teach. And even back then, like I go back and look at some of my teaching texts and it's like, okay, teaching writing for diversity. And I don't think we had a concept of what that meant back then. It was multiculturalism, which was kind of like the trend. But even then, I remember getting things like you have to learn how to basically, make I guess provisions or make some kind of, I don't want to say excuses, but it is in a way, for people in their different cultural, socio-cultural backgrounds. And but yeah, the teachers nowadays, my favorite story to tell, and if I've told this before, forgive me, but it was one of my friends who was volunteering in her son's kindergarten class. Mm-hmm. She's, kind of helping with the kids. And then this little girl comes up to the teacher, and this was probably around 2011, 2012, comes up to the teacher and says, teacher, do you know how many inches are in a foot? And the teacher responds, about 11. And my friend was total.
What?
Right. About 11. We're not even like, we're not, I mean, there's no about it, right?
Yeah. Where do you even come up with that? About 11? Like you might as well say 12. Okay.
Really easy to say 12. It's not, and they're not really taught in my own teaching program. I went into my teaching program after I had received my bachelor's degree in English. So most of the teaching program was geared not towards like my content area. Some of it was, but most of it was geared towards classroom management, grading practices, assessment, curriculum planning, that kind of thing. And so, as far as having that foundational knowledge, that's what I think that's what a lot of the teachers are missing right now. For instance, a kid in my neighborhood, a junior, last year was telling me about her social studies teacher in her history class. And she said that she would teach straight off of PowerPoints, that she didn't prepare herself. And that every time a kid raised their hand and said, can you explain more about like how the US got involved in World War I, the teacher would say, that's a good question. You should Google it.
Google it. Oh my God. That's like horrible advice.
It's horrible advice. It's horrible advice. And it's just goes to show you kind of like, I mean, there's desperation, they're trying to get more teachers into the profession. It's not an attractive profession to enter into at this time. And in fact, they're really working to kind of like, weed out anybody with an independent mind if they haven't already done it. They make it very intolerable. These are intolerable, and I think very hostile working conditions for teachers. I don't think it's fair what they have to go in and be subjected to, whether it's from the student side of not having just straightforward discipline policies, or whether it's from the administrative side where there are so many expectations on these students to like juggle 20 million different balls and not just be able to teach math.
Yeah. Okay. As we're kind of coming to the end here, I just wanted to get back on our DEI kind of discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you have any kind of overall observations, like from what I got from your what you were talking about earlier is like, we actually have to dig deeper. And so far, all we've done is kind of a surface maybe I would call it maybe like an attempt at an eradication of it, but really all we did is we allowed them to relabel and continue into a different title now.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about your thoughts on where we are and where do we go from here.
So where I see the main problems, like Natalie and I, we've done so many deep dives into kind of what the education landscape looks like in terms of the DEI challenges. Part of our problem is we've let it get too deeply ingrained into our culture and our lexicon. And many people communicate this way by default. I go to church and I hear people get up and talk about inclusivity. There's like no such word in the Bible, right? There's no such word in the Book of Mormon, but we've let it get too deep into our culture. And the way you change the culture, I mean, people have been trying to do that for decades, right? But unfortunately, kind of once you get into this like slippery slope downward slide, it's very hard to reverse course. The biggest way you could reverse course is through personnel. In other words, people who do not subscribe to this. However, they still have to deal with layer upon layer of bureaucracy, of administrative oversight. There's no such thing as just like a teacher in a classroom, and they're the ultimate mediator as to what happens. Like you have these teachers associations, you have these principals associations, you have these boards associations, you have these superintendents associations, and these are just the UEA, the NEA, you've got AFT, and it goes on, and then you have the government, right? You got the legislature who year after year passes all these really bad bills. So when it comes to DEI, if you can help people see it for what it is, you can start, I think, maybe not necessarily reversing the flow, but you can start damming it. You can put fingers in the dike, so to speak. We don't have the critical mass for that yet, unfortunately. And that's why it's really important that we are able to speak about these things and to have public forums where we are still able to express like, hey, this is a good policy, this is a bad policy, etc., and to have those discussions. Parents, what they can do, really, as long as parents aren't seeing it for what it is, and as long as they're trusting the schools, it's not going to change. Nothing's going to change. And a lot of the schools' policies are designed around kind of like, flipping parents, inverting the power structure. Parents, you are to be taught by the schools how to behave, how to interact with us, how to engage. We need parents who reclaim their adulthood, reclaim their parental rights, and really do it and educate themselves. If you're not educated about these things, you can't expect your kid to navigate this type of environment. That's impossible. Your kid is going to need your guidance. I've always, kind of taught my kids, just, you need to be able to push back. If something doesn't feel right, listen to your conscience. You have a conscience. If it doesn't feel right, I'll back you up. I will come to your side. I will be there, and we'll sort through this together. But you're not there to be exploited by the system. If I sent you there, it's because I want you to get a stinking education. And if that's not happening, then you have to be ready to make real choices. But the school system is right now, right? It's fed by many things. It's fed by children. As long as you keep sending your kids to the system, that's what feeds the system. The money feeds the system. The public-private partnerships feeds the system. The tech feeds the system. And a lot of these like policies feed the system. They just grow it and grow it and grow it. And here we've got, all these school districts hiking your taxes. They're hiking your taxes. Enrollment is declining. The quality of education or proficiency scores are in the toilet, or they're absolutely stagnant. And so what are we really paying for? And people, if they ask themselves these questions, and if they, as like Natalie Klein likes to say, if you're not willing to sacrifice for your children, you will end up sacrificing them. At the end of the day, you're the only thing standing between them and a system that wants to, I think, just indoctrinate the death out of them. So, let's see what we can do in terms of, we can try what we can on policy, but we have a lot of legislators who don't get it. That's too bad. So it's going to come down to you making personal decisions and understanding why you're making those personal decisions, because the system's not exactly like racing to conform its way of doing business to the individual, right? This is a stakeholder model of governance that has taken over pretty much.
Oh, I think we got a little freeze there. It says we have four. Oh, okay. Well, what does it say 4 messages for? Oh, you want to come back on, Monica? Close your. Sorry, I think you froze. You froze on us for a minute.
Sorry.
That's okay. Okay. No worries. Okay. Well, I think I think you kind of closed your thought out there when you froze.
Yeah. Was there another question that needed to be addressed, or are we good?
I think we're good. Do you want to, before you leave though, tell people where they can find you?
Yeah. So our website is higherground.work. That's WORK. And we'll be adding a lot more to it pretty soon here, but we just recently redesigned our website to make it more or easier to navigate, easier for people to find things. Let's see, you can also find us on X under the handle of @highergroundUT. We're also that way on YouTube. That's our website.
That's our website.
And and if you want to look at Natalie or I up on.
Oh, I think she's frozen again. Okay. Well, okay. Well, you know where to find her. I think that was a really informative little talk. Just to close out, we've got about 5 minutes left. So I've got a couple. Oh, maybe she's back. Did you have any? Hold on. Do you have any quick closing thoughts?
No, just thank you for having me on, Goud. I wish Natalie could have been here as well, but it's just wanted to say, we've got a legislative session coming up. There are a lot of bills that are not pro-family. There's an absenteeism bill that is being worked on by, I think it's like Doug Welton and a state board member. It's horrible. It's like it double punishes kids for their absences. Like it's going to punish their academic grades for absences, which is horrible. So there are lots of things to keep an eye on. Public education is not going in a good direction. So, just get your kids to higher ground is what I would say. And if the system isn't serving you, you don't have to serve it. You have options.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Monica. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Goud.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Well, we have like 4 minutes. Okay. Couple quick things here. First, in the Rule 60B motion, which I talked about before, the Attorney General's office actually filed their opposition on Friday. And so I'll just boil it down by saying this. Their essential argument is that unless you use the magic words, they are not required to produce the documents that are responsive to your request. And so we have to file our reply brief on Friday. So I'll be working on that this week. And then I'll give you guys an update maybe next Monday, and we can kind of talk about more detail. Their opposition, our reply, and then we'll see what happens, because at that point, it should be ready for the court to make a decision. Then I just want to give you guys a little bit. Some of you may have seen this already on X, but I thought this was kind of crazy. So let me play this for you.
Wait.
Okay.
I'm a patriot. I love my country.
I love my country too. We have Utah patriots in Utah. We're gonna follow them and execute them after this for Nuremberg 2.0 because they're such fucking MAGA.
Wait.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, I got told I hope you get Charlie Kirk. So.
Well, I'm glad Charlie Kirk's dead. I'm from Utah, born and bred, and I know all about the Mormons and Charlie Kirk, and his wife that was banned in Romania for trafficking children with her ministry. So,
Okay. So this woman, I'm actually she is a left-wing activist in Utah, and she actually goes around and targets conservative men all over the country. I've actually had to watch a bunch of her videos because I'm representing someone who she has filed a stalking injunction lawsuit against, and she claims that my client was stalking her. She has examples of it. But the point, and she got a temporary civil stalking injunction because that's just basically how the process works. Courts are nervous about denying them. So if you apply for one, they'll basically grant it pro forma without, and then I want to be fair to courts. They don't do a lot of due diligence on them because I think the view is, okay, if you're going to challenge it, you have an opportunity to challenge it. So we'd rather be on the safe side and issue the injunction. That's what happened here. But anyway, so we challenged it, and so we're going through the process now. But what I find so interesting about this is it fits a pattern that's been going on, and Utah is a place where this is happening, where left-wing activists are weaponizing our stalking injunction laws. And so we have to, I think, obviously I'll defend my client in this case, but we also need to make some changes to our statutes to account for this, to protect people's free speech rights, and to prevent the weaponization of our stalking statute by activists. Maybe there'll be more on that in the future. Let's see. I got a couple more quick comments here. Let's see. Caroline says, check out defendingeducation.org. Okay. So if you're listening out there, that's another website you can go to. So we've got Higher Ground Utah, and then defendingeducation.org. And then she said, from where is your JD? No, I went to Georgetown. Yeah, I graduated in 2003, so I've been out of law school now for like 22 years. Just saying it makes me feel old. Anyway, it is 7 o'clock. That means we're at time. So it has been a pleasure. This is the Goud Crowd. I'm your host, Goud. We are on every single Monday from 5 to 7 p.m. We'll be back next Monday. We'll have a Christmas special. We'll talk about more current events. In the meantime, you can follow me on X. That's where I'm the most active, and my handle is @GoudForUtah. You can also, I encourage you to follow Utah Main Street Media as well on X, and then also to follow them on YouTube and or Rumble. And then you can always catch our show on kmmu.org. So, sorry. Mr. Producer says actually on X, it's @MediaUtah. So I encourage you to follow them as well because they do give updates on the shows. They have shows every night, and they're good shows, especially if you want to talk about Utah issues. The best shows you'll get. So anyway, it's been a pleasure, and I'm signing off.